Hello there and a warm welcome to your program, People's Imbizo, brought to you by African News Network. Thank you for choosing us. Of course, we'll be discussing topical issues as well. You're at home, welcome to join in the conversation. Our Twitter handle is @ANN7TV and you can use the hashtag People's Imbizo. The topic today is this book right here, the CRL Commission, the Rights Commission, a report on the hearings on the commercialization of religion and abuse of people's belief system. A very emotive topic, and I know you're at home will be very much interested in telling us exactly what you think, and you're welcome to do so. And I'm your host, Audrey Chimwanda, and as usual, I have a panel with me who will be helping us discuss this issue from different religions and different faiths, and they'll be telling us about what contribution that they have made and what they think of these recommendations that the CRL has come up with. We also have an audience that will be crossing to in a few minutes' time for any questions that they may have for the panel, and I'll take this opportunity to have everyone introduce themselves, starting off to the left, so please go ahead.
I am Professor Luka David Musoma, Deputy Chairperson of CRL Rights Commission.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Glenn Wayne Osher, from a Jewish background, 29 years, and I've been living a Christian life, born again life for the last 27 years. Got 8 grandchildren, 8 children, 1 wife, 1 divorce, and I love God and I love people.
There you have Glenn's whole autobiography in 1 minute. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, ma'am, very quickly.
Hi, I'm Turhan Masan, and I am from the Islamic faith, and by profession a teacher.
Right, thank you. Reverend?
I'm Reverend Hermie Damans. I'm a board member of the Evangelical Alliance of South Africa.
Yes. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll get right to it. Of course, we want to understand exactly why it was important for this commission to happen, and the hearings and the recommendations that came after that. I'll ask you, sir, to please tell us why it was necessary, how the whole process started, and what you're trying to achieve with this commission.
First, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with the audience and to share with all South Africans. We ascended to the position of commissioners only 3 years ago, and we looked at the mandate of the commission, which is to protect and promote the rights of cultural, religious, and linguistic communities. We have had meetings, first with the Deputy Minister, under whose portfolio we fall in Parliament, and key issues came to the fore with regard to the perceived commercialization of religion in South Africa. But we didn't take that serious. We wanted to have what is called a study, low-key study, just to find out whether these things exist. So we mandated our teams to go through South Africa with the support of the South African Council of Churches. We invited pastors, religious leaders across the board to participate. That was the first thing. But that participation did not bear fruit because there was very marginal participation in that. Secondly, we received complaints, concerns from the public itself with regard to the question of commercialization and the abuse of people's belief system. Because of our prior experience of religious leaders not attending, we then resorted to using the summons to invite them. So many religious leaders were not happy about the summons because they thought we were finding them guilty by using that method. However, we invited them to come here and we raised the issues with them. We told them how the study was going to be conducted, and the study was two-pronged. One, the hearing side, which was the section that we, as Section 7, emanating from our Act, constituted, using the summons to invite religious leaders to come forth to discuss a number of issues. We raised questions on that. Issue has to do with the structure, the use of the resources, the perceived understanding whether commercialization does exist or not. So we went through that. Registration of pastors, qualifications, and so forth and so forth.
Right. And we'll come back to, the rest of, how you conducted this commission. I just want to hear from Glenn why you found it necessary for you to change your faith. If that's not too personal, if it's something that you can share with us, and perhaps you could tell us what your faith is about.
Yes, I knew it was necessary because my life I was confused living with my Jewish community. Beautiful people, doing beautiful things, but yet there was something missing. And thank goodness after migraines, maybe I'll call some of them headaches, skin disease, back pain. I mean, I found myself trying to save my life, being called a bloody Jew my whole life, at school, in the army, South African army. And even by Jews themselves who call me a bloody Jew. In the army I had a fight. They threw us two Jews in the middle in Potchefstroom, and the university ladies were cheering from the top, saying, yes, come, give us a good fight. So when my mother slept in a different room on the floor and my father slept in the main bedroom, that's where I saw a lot of other families, Jewish families, had a similar problem. There wasn't this joy and this love and all the good things. And when there was, it was like put onto me. It was like a face, but inside there was brokenness. So in Israel, they got a place called the Wailing Wall, where people are wailing at the Wailing Wall, and I found my life was like wailing. And I found myself lying, forcing a lady to sleep with me, trying to go out and have a beer with the boys, because before I really met God in 1989, having a beer with the boys, or 10, was not a problem. And I said I'd never get drunk, but I found myself in a terrible place sometimes. So I had a beautiful child here and another child there from different women, and I looked at my life, not having learned anything at school. Yet I had a Jewish bar mitzvah. I was going to synagogue. I was even in Arcadia Jewish orphanage from the age of 10 to 15 around the corner here. And I had 7 businesses at the age of 29. And I owed like nearly R1 million. I didn't have the skills, but I had these businesses all on my own.
Okay.
And eventually I thought, no, I was finished. I was heavy laden and burdened, and one day a miracle happened. And
right. So I guess we're talking about persecution, with the faith that you choose to practice in life, and you found that you had to change to Christianity, and this is how you found yourself here. And I suppose this is some of the issues that you're looking at during your commission, isn't it? We'll come back to that. I just want to hear from you, ma'am, from the Islamic Center of Africa, what that embodies.
Well, it's Islamic faith, and it is also one of the centers where there is no discrimination against women. It is, as the Quran would have given it, that we are exactly the same, although different responsibilities, but very much a woman worships the way the man worships. And that is what it actually entails.
Yeah.
And like I said, the most important point is there's no prejudice or discrimination against women.
And a lot of, perceptions when it comes to different faiths, that are in our communities. And, just trying to debunk that, to separate the myths from the facts, it's also very important, because that's how people get persecuted sometimes. I just want to come to you, Reverend, with regards to the CRL Commission. How did you think the whole process panned out? Were you a part of it? And what contributions did you make, if you were?
Yeah, we were very much a part of the submissions that was made to the Commission. Through one of our networking partners for SA, Freedom of Religion South Africa. But also we were also engaged with the different churches within our organization. Ours is in a communal body, very much like the South African Council of Churches, representing the Pentecostal, Evangelical, Charismatic churches, and also a number of independent churches as well. And so through our network of churches, we were very much involved with the Commission submissions, with the presentations. A number of our member churches made those presentations. Yes, we do have reservations around some of the points. Some of the points coming out of the report. We do have some reservations in it, but we do believe that going forward, that we will have an opportunity to further engage with the process.
Yeah, Professor Msoma, you did admit that it wasn't an easy process. You know, there are certain, procedures that perhaps happened that were not very clear with everyone. Just looking at what you have called a perception or perhaps an abuse of people's belief systems, we've seen a lot of things happening on television where we have seen, people being made to eat grass and all sorts of things. But then some would argue that, look, we have legislation that takes care of that. Why do you feel the need to regulate religion when we have the police perhaps, or any other branch of legislation that can take care of it? As also with the commercialization of churches, we have SARS that would be able to take care of that.
I think this is a very important question. We looked at this. For example, the arrest of the snake eating. We wanted to institute an arrest. And of course, even Dr. Miso's party wanted to institute an arrest. But we could not do that, simply because the question was asked, was the snake dead before it was used or it was still alive?
Why should that matter?
It matters because for SPSA, they cannot persecute somebody if you picked up a dead snake.
Right, okay.
So there was no legal basis, no act to do that. So we couldn't follow that up. The second thing, there is a perception that each and every act can be persecuted. There cannot be a persecution if there's no a complaint. And majority of the people would not complain. They enjoy eating the snake.
And that exactly is the question, yes. That why would you want to regulate someone's faith, no matter how bizarre it looks to you, but if this is what they believe in. I mean, people will talk about traditional leaders, that practice a different kind of faith that is not necessarily the Western type of religion. They will go to the forest, they'll take a snake, they will do all sorts of rituals on it, and they'll give it to someone to heal them and to say, if you believe in this, this will actually work out for you. How do we differentiate between the two? I don't know who wants to take this one.
I wanted to take that
Okay,
up,
you can take that.
Remember, each and every religion has got a text, or written or unwritten. And for those that we have interviewed in the main, one of the questions we raised, what informs you? Your faith, yes. Your doctrine, yes. Because those are the preserve which we don't want to be part of.
That you do not touch.
Yes.
Doctrine you do not touch.
We don't touch that. So what informs you? Some would say it's because this is the sacrament. Sacrament from what basis? Is it still a Christian religion or something else? So some of these key questions come and are not answered. Let me further indicate that part of why this self-regulation, self-regulation, because this is a very important thing, because in our text, in our report, there is nowhere where we are mentioning that CRL will be regulating, will be interfering in the life of religious organizations. We came up with a structure of peer review committees. In other words, we are saying each and every religion specific belongs to a particular umbrella body with a peer review committee.
And let's just hear from the audience. Perhaps you'd like to take part. I'll pose this question to you and hear what you guys think about it. Do you think that there is an attack on freedom of practice of religion?
I think there is, because this panel seems like to decide what people must believe in.
Okay.
Yes.
What scenario would you rather have? I mean, what's your thoughts on what we've been seeing on people that practice their faith on television, and what is perceived as abuse by other people who perhaps do not understand, how they practice their faith? Should they be allowed to just do exactly what they want?
I think they should be allowed, because everyone has a right to believe in what they want to believe in. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Just coming back to, I want to, yes, ma'am.
I think it is a right for us to believe what we need to believe in. However, how it is perceived by others what we believe in is where a problem comes. And I think that is where regulation is required.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I cannot control the perception of other people, but it is for others in their own individual way to know, don't misjudge, don't push your perceptions on others. You know, you really should get to the basis of what their belief is.
Right. And I think what the Constitution says also is that it is not legal to promote the one faith, you know, amongst other faiths, or the non-religion of other people among, you know, on top of other people. But I've done some research, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that when it comes to the, you know, Islamic faith, there's certain schools that require only people that believe in that faith, and doesn't accommodate people that have, you know, other religion like Christianity or Jewish. Is that a fact? Would you know?
I don't totally understand your question.
Okay.
If you say a religion, then this is your faith, this is your divine books that you accept. You follow the core beliefs, just like you said.
Okay, is there strictly Islamic schools in South Africa?
Yeah, there are many, as there are Jewish schools, as there are Christian schools,
Okay.
yes.
All right. But would you then shut out any other person who has a different faith that wants to come to the school?
No, that has never happened. I have taught at many of these schools as well, and that has never happened. You are at liberty to attend. You will, because there are religious studies, that is why we call it an Islamic school.
Okay.
So your afternoon classes that you would have attended is included in the course of your day, like your periods, certain periods will be for certain religious studies. Other than that, the basic syllabus will be followed, as will be the curriculum for that grade or that phase of your learning. Okay, but whoever wants to attend would attend. If you don't want to attend or sit in on that class, you are excused. I've been at schools where this is exactly it.
Okay.
And you do maintain your Islamic, if it's your Christian faith, your Hindu faith,
You're allowed to keep that.
you maintained, yeah,
Okay,
you are
that's
allowed to
a
do that.
clarification that I think was very important. A lot of people didn't understand. Reverend Diamonds, are the lines blurred here with regards to, you say it's a peer structure, Professor Msoma, and you know, some people are saying, look, this is being taken to Parliament, and that means that the state is going to regulate people's faith. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah, that is indeed the perception that has been created by the report that has been submitted to Parliament. But I think I just want to come back to the issue of that Professor Msoma raised early on with regards to people having dubious practices within their religious faith. The Constitution is very clear that we do have freedom of religion, and I think our concern is that ambit of the Constitution might be interfered with, and that I think is the concern of many. With regards to, I mean, the Constitutional Court has ruled with regards to bizarre practices, which the Constitutional Court has ruled is acceptable because that is what is prescribed in certain religions. And so if we say that freedom of religion is a fundamental rule of our Constitution, then it also goes without saying that whatever the practices is within those religious faiths, those must be permitted. And that is what the Constitutional Court has ruled on. And I think our concern is really just the fact that there is a great concern by many within the Christian faith and outside as well, I would assume, that the rulings of the CRL Commission, or rather the recommendations of the Commission, might have some impact on how we practice our religion. And I think that is something that we want to warn against and that we want to caution against.
Yeah. Just come, yes,
I
sir.
want to take on that issue. The problem with our understanding of the Constitution is that we read only the freedom and rights of religion. We don't read the section on limitations. There is no absolute right. All rights are limited. In other words, if you look at the Constitution, there's an overriding principle, human dignity. Anything that attacks, undermines, distorts human dignity, at the heart of it, it attacks the Constitution. In other words, if you make people using either magic or hypnosis means people act outside of themselves. If you look at people crawling like ants, eating grass, they can't account for themselves because now these people are seized as hypnotic, by hypnosis.
But is that not a perception, Professor, this hypnosis? Can you prove that they're under hypnosis?
Because
or they're willingly taking part in this practice?
When we interviewed people who are actually doing this, They say we first throw them into a trance. In this particular hall, in a trance, hypnosis. That's why when they do what they do, they are not within their understanding. They can't understand themselves. So I'm saying there is a limit.
How do you, I just want to come to you, Glenn. I'm very interested in how you changed your faith, the different doctrines that you had to follow through. Would you say in any of those there was an issue of abuse of practice?
Well, Jesus said, beware, there will be many false prophets in the last days. So he warned us. So when Romans 13 says to back up, give to Caesar, God's put the government in power. And he says if we do not submit to the government, then we are fighting against God. We must pray for the government to have wisdom to govern the people, to live quiet, peaceable lives, working with our own hands, looking after our own family and the poor.
Do you think your faith is under attack with the CRL Rights Commission?
I don't think in that manner. Like I said, we do have our peer review systems in place. We have
that
structures,
already.
yes. However, we do have always there's extremism, and the one who wants to decide when are you extreme and when are you not extreme. So it comes to a situation of, as well, you either honor and respect those who are in leadership as opposed to those who are trying to manipulate you. And I think that is something when the professor speaks about limitations, then I think we must consider those things, yes. My faith is not under attack, no, and nor is my religion under attack. But definitely we have amongst us discord, that is normal.
Yes.
And being a divine faith, human dignity is of utmost importance. And if it is divine faith, your human dignity will always be maintained. It is the people who will degrade you, yes.
Yes, the whole issue of dignity, yes, Reverend, I see you want to chip in there.
Yes, I actually want to just respond to what Professor Msomo was saying with regards to the peer review and the fact that certain people's human dignity is being impinged. I think we share those concerns. Within the broad Christian community, we share those concerns about people's human dignity being infringed upon. And we do not subscribe to anybody being abused in any form or shape whatsoever. As far as that's concerned, we do believe that there is enough legislation, sufficient legislation in place to prosecute those people who are abusing people, misusing their office, their ministry office, or whatever the case may be. I think the case in point was the one of the pastor in Limpopo, or prophet, who sprayed people with doom, who was successfully prosecuted by the MEC in Limpopo. And I think that has proven and serves as a case in point that legislation, the current legislation, is effective enough in dealing with some of these issues. But with regards to the peer review proposals and suggestions of the Commission, again, we have no issue with that. We believe that those peer review committees and infrastructure that exist can address some of those issues within the framework of the different denominations and groupings. I think one of the concerns that we do have is the issue of licensing of pastors, because the licensing of pastors obviously would resort with the Commission, and I think that is where a lot of people have an issue with that, and I think that's one of the reasons why people feel that government would be infringing on the sphere of religion to some degree, because now an external body, which is a government body in essence, would be responsible for the licensing of different ministers and religious practitioners. And I think that is something that still needs to be debated and needs to be resolved to some degree.
Absolutely. I just want to cross back to the audience.
Seeing that Christianity has become a joke in our society, do you still think you've made the right decision?
There's a song that says, I once was lost and now I'm found. I was blind and now I see. When God reveals himself to somebody and he comes and knocks on the door of your heart, which happened to me in 1989. I had 7 businesses, 7 headaches, owed nearly R1 million. I didn't know my left hand from my right, and I thought I was Richard Gere or Sylvester Stallone. I didn't know who I was. This young Jewish boy that went through all the Jewish rituals, did all the stuff you're supposed to do.
I would like to know the criteria that is going to be used to offer this licensing. Please, may you clarify more on that?
I would like to ask about the qualifications and pastors from the professor. Our professor spoke about the qualifications from pastors. So I would like to ask if the pastor will need to have degrees or something like that.
Just coming back to the panel, a few questions there coming from the audience, and we'll just pose it right back. Of course, if you have just joined us, this is People's Imbizo brought to you by ANN7. We're talking off the hearings on the commercialization of religion, abuse of people's belief systems. Of course, you're at home. Welcome to joining the conversation. Professor, I know you want to answer this question. I think the first one that we had, the issue of
licensing.
Yes, licensing.
These are very nice questions, and I'm happy they come from young people whose future is really the basis on which we do all of these things. Remember that CRL does not have institution to train pastors. We have no college, we have no university. Which means, and remember, it's not only about the Christian religion, it's also about the religion without books. Okay? Now, those with colleges or universities would still do so. It is incumbent upon the religious specific to ascertain qualification of their own, what we call pastors or religious leaders. What we do, we keep a database which already our Act permits. Who is where doing what? That's about it. Now, when we talk about licensing, if, for instance, a pastor comes from outside into South Africa, if a doctor comes from outside in South Africa, that doctor would not practice until the Medical Society of South Africa has certified that this person can actually teach or can actually be a doctor. We are saying that that particular person must come through an umbrella body. And that umbrella body will then recommend, because we are keeping the database, and say this person is one of us. We are not going to say we are refusing or not refusing on the basis of the recommendation from a peer review committee. Currently, we have a preponderance of people who are coming to South Africa. At every turn, you have got mushrooming of churches, are not known, they are competing. In fact, there are more than businesses in South Africa. So we are trying to make sure each and every religious institution, whether it's African religious institution, whether those are the people who are hitting drums, that's why we talked about the worship centers. It could be at the bank of a river, under a tree, in a school, everywhere, because they have different temples of their own. So this is an attempt to make sure we bring order. I don't think you can believe in a God who's orderless.
And accountability.
God is a God of social cohesion and moral authority. So we need to make sure that in the protection, remember, our mandate is to protect. You can't protect something you do not know or even understand. This is an attempt to collaborate, working together to promote religion in South Africa. In other countries, they actually expel you. We have received a communique from one of the countries saying, why do you allow this pastor who has defrauded, looted our people in your country doing the same thing? In other words, we have become a laughingstock of the continent ourselves because of allowing this shoddy and check at what you call it.
Yes, and on that note, we'll have to take a very short break. Of course, this is People's Imbizo brought to you by African News Network. First 30 minutes is up. We'll be back in a few minutes. Do stay tuned as we continue to talk about the issue of regulating faith. Where do we draw the line? Is this an infringement of the Constitution? Of course, you're at home. Welcome to give us your views and your thoughts on our Twitter handle. We'll be back in a moment.